Hi, everyone. Welcome to A New View. I'm Shira, and I'm here with Kim, Lee, and Juji. We are four friends, speakers, and professionals from different cultures, backgrounds, and age groups coming together to offer healing and inspiration. So, today's topic is one that I have experienced a lot of in my life, but I feel like the transformation that I've been through has really helped me make me more aware of it. And Juji, you had shared a quote recently that literally blew my mind. And because I'm the quote queen, I'm going to start us off with the quote. And the quote is, when you withhold to keep the peace, you start a war inside yourself. Holy shit.
Big one.
I didn't even know I was starting a war inside myself by doing that, by being like the peacekeeper and tiptoeing around things. But it is such a toxic character trait, and one that I have really worked hard at to try to be more aware of, and to be just more like grounded in my truth and speak up as opposed to tiptoeing and pussyfooting around things. Does that resonate with you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to share that there was a graphic that went along with that quote when I saw it. And it was, like a line drawing of two people facing each other. And like one person was just like covered in flowers, and like the other one on the inside was like on fire, basically. And I have experienced times when like the rage inside of me was just like so intense, and yet I didn't feel like I could speak up. And actually, the first time this really showed up in my life was when I was in college and I had a roommate. And we had met freshman year in the dorms, and we were friends and all this stuff. And when we moved in together, like into an apartment, we sort of promised each other that we would live together for the rest of college, because it was like going so great. But then it kind of like started to burn south. I can own the fact that there was like some jealousy there. She was really very like popular with the boys. She was really like cool and talented, and I there was jealousy there, but there was also like differences in how we like felt we wanted our house to be. Like I'm a very clean person, she wasn't so much, and so like I cleaned for the both of us, and I became very resentful of that. But because in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I promised we would live together for the rest of college, so I need to keep the peace, and I can never say anything. And I have to like hold in how resentful I'm getting of the fact that like I'm always the one buying toilet paper and making sure that the towels aren't on the floor and things like that. And like the longer this went on, the longer I withheld, the more resentful I became. And it's like, it wasn't her problem at all, because she had no idea I was feeling this way. I just had like this laundry list of grievances that I never sort of put out there. And, this began sort of this ongoing line of being with people, like that was the first time that I really had to like form adult relationships, and it informed how I formed these adult relationships in the future. And I know people who are still great friends with people they were in college, and this woman and I are no longer, because I left college and I was like, well, good riddance or whatever.
So you never confronted her? You never like told her how, yeah, see.
Yeah. But it's also so typical, or I think common, not necessarily typical. I mean, the people we knew when we were 17 and 18, how many of those connections do we still have, and how many promises or pinky squares, swears did we make that we thought would last forever back then? It's like, now it's almost comical. Like, well, we promised each other, you know what I mean? But back then it's a serious thing.
Well, I just want to chime in and say that that's like an excellent example, Juji, and it made me think about other things that we're committed to, like your partner for life, like in a marriage. And I remember also feeling that way. I mean, I don't know if the viewers know, like I was with my ex for 32 years and I walked on eggshells a lot because I am the intrinsic peacekeeper, cheerleader, like that was my role. And I remember a specific example of that was years ago. We had this production, we were doing this children's show. And I remember like finally my career dream was like starting to come true. But in my marriage, I was still feeling a little, like neglected or, not connected, lack of affection, just things that were bothering me that I never really spoke up. Like I'd write poems about it, like just always pussyfooting. Sometimes I would say it directly, but it was always met with, oh, you're so needy or whatever the case was. And I remember specifically saying to myself, well, we just started season 1 and it's so exciting and I'm writing all my songs and everything's so great. I'm not going to bring it up now. I'll bring it up like after season 1 production. And that was months. So like I just totally squelched everything that was going on inside me, starting that war, which had already been building for quite a long time. And then after season 1, I was just like, all right, I guess I have to pick a time to talk about it. Well, and he seems really stressed out. Maybe I won't bring it up now. Just constantly thinking that way. And all I'm doing is just invalidating my own self. And when you do that for years and years, you really just start forgetting who you are and what you want. And literally like your soul is just sucked away. And so I see that so clearly now, but I thought I was doing the right thing at the time. And you can't be a mind reader. You can't be. Other people cannot be a mind reader. When you don't speak up and say, even if it's the smallest thing that's bothering you, if you're just direct about it, you'll get the answer that you're looking for. Like if you had said to your roommate, I'd really appreciate it if you, chipped in and bought toilet paper more. If you got an answer that sounded like, ooh, so touchy, or like, what's wrong? Or if you got the answer like, oh, I'm so sorry. Of course, I'll get it next time. You know what you're dealing with. It's so much more direct. You don't have to go through all of the pain and suffering. You know what you're dealing with. It's such a self-respect thing at the end of the day. And so that's why I think this is such an important topic. And there are ways to do it. There are ways to speak up. But when you let that resentment build inside of you, it can explode. And that's never, ever productive.
Right. And I think the key word there, like you said, is you know what you're dealing with, because you may not want to deal with it anymore, obviously, and make that decision and move on. But that's the hard part. That's the challenge. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be put down or insulted, and that's the fear that most of us have, until we build up some of that strength and security within us, as we have all done a lot more of, growing up.
Yep.
Well, do you guys feel like when you are afraid of confronting somebody about something that they are doing that feels hurtful to you, or not even like that they're doing something, but they're not doing something, in Shira's case, in my case, that when they are going to be confronted with this, my perception for a long time was like, if I say something, they're going to come back at me with like, well, but you don't do this. And then I would have to be on the defensive immediately, like, oh, I'm not a perfect roommate, but if I never say anything, then I can live in the perception that I am the perfect roommate and they're the only ones who aren't cleaning enough, buying toilet paper, doing the things that, roommates do, like picking up after themselves and stuff like that. And so like, it was like, in a way, validating myself, because I never had to have a back and forth about it.
But that goes to the how you say it, and B, what you're dealing with. If you did confront her and she did have that, oh, well, if you think I don't get toilet paper, where you don't do all these other things, would you ever do that if somebody came to you and said, hey, listen, I'm feeling like maybe the balance isn't that great. Would you be willing to blah, blah, blah? You wouldn't be like, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's actually a good point, right? Like it depends on if you're dealing with a rational person or not.
It does. And, I think a whole new topic is forming from this that we may want to discuss on a future show is that, Juji, for you, and you mentioned perfect roommate. Was that your goal, to be a perfect roommate?
Sure. I mean, perfection is, I feel like, something that I aimed for a really long time. And I mean, there's an element in this about like social inclusion, right? Like just feeling like the person that you're with is there to like, mirror back to you your perfection, that you're a good person, that you're like, and especially in like such a sort of transitional time in your life where you are literally just learning who you are. Like you are just trying to become an adult. You are just trying to like see how the world sees you. And in that moment being like, the world needs to see me as perfect.
I relate to that. And, Juji, we're talking about, you're validating yourself. And I could see just from the outside, what you already know, there was that fear there. There was that fear from you that didn't want to hear something back bad about yourself. And on that topic of fear, that's what it's sort of all based in. And it's different for all of us, like confrontation in general. When I was thinking about this topic and all my years in therapy, growing up in a dysfunctional family, it's so clear. It became so clear to me last night why I walk on eggshells with anyone, whether it's a moody boss or, something a good friend, someone close to me does that upsets me, like my husband, anything. And it all stems from my childhood. That saying, what helps as a child handicaps as an adult. I don't know if you've heard of that saying, but
awesome.
Yeah, it's so true, because when I was young, I grew up in a chaotic house and I wanted to avoid conflict because it was already very unstable, chaotic, and I didn't want to like stir up any emotions or whatever. Like I didn't want to make things worse. And so that sort of became like not speaking up became and pussyfooting around, like you said, Shira, like that became my coping mechanism as a kid. So then growing up, like I know I don't live in a house where it feels dangerous or scary or anything like that. Like I'm surrounded by loving people, but the 5-year-old little girl in me gets triggered and probably will forever. She gets triggered and then all of a sudden it feels like it's scary and I'm scared to say something. And I'm 45 years old. I don't know if that'll ever go away, but over the years, and I was thinking, oh, this is just me maturing, growing up, whatever. But I think it's really more so the work that I'm doing and we're doing, finding awareness, asking yourself powerful questions, all the things we've ever spoken about, all this work, really helped me to start speaking up. I mean, I remember when I was in therapy, I was in my 20s, and I think I've shared this story with you guys, but I was in an acting class, and this girl, I was acting in front of the class, and I saw her talking to somebody in the stands, and she was laughing, like with this guy. And right away, I was like, oh my God. And she was my friend. And I was like, I can't believe she's laughing at me. Like, I just assumed she was laughing at something I was doing, but I was doing a very serious scene. And I just was so taken back by it. And I remember being in therapy and telling her how much this was bothering me or whatever. And my therapist was like, you absolutely have to talk to her about it. And I was like, I can't. Like, I just couldn't. I was terrified. She's like, and she said kind of what you said, Shira, like, well, what are you scared of exactly? Because half the time, most of the time, 99% of the time, you're pleasantly surprised by somebody's reaction. And then you're so proud of yourself that you said something, right? But you'll never know unless you say it. And then, of course, what happened? I was like, shaking, getting her on the phone, lost a night of sleep thinking about this conversation. And I got on the phone with her and she was like, oh my God, Kim, the guy next to her like farted during my scene. And so she was just like, like she was just like reacting to it. And I happened to see that. And we both had like kind of a good laugh about it. And then I got off the phone and I was like, my therapist was totally right. And why was I so scared? Why was I so scared? And I really credit it all to just growing up in such an chaotic house that I didn't feel safe in. And I didn't feel safe to express myself. I didn't feel safe. And those triggers, come every now and then. I'm just now at a place where I can recognize the trigger and I could ask myself, if I'm not feeling strong enough to like confront this person just yet or whatever, like maybe just go in baby steps. Like sometimes I've sent an email to say something to a coworker about something, or maybe I, just take the time to myself to really figure out how to say it. Like I'm a little more easy with myself when it comes to it, but I definitely have gotten better at it for sure.
Well, it's all about the practice, it's kind of like if you're, you break your leg and then you have to start learning, or like you're in a bad accident, you have to start learning to walk again. You don't just start walking. You're just like, So it's like gonna feel uncomfortable when you start speaking up for yourself. And there's so many resources out there, to even little scripts that you can, look at and practice. But the other thing I wanted to say, and we talked about this when we were prepping, is this whole idea of thinking that if you bring something up, the other person won't be able to handle it. And that is so true for me, that you're just like, oh yeah, no, I can't do that. And you're not giving them the credit to be able to respond to your own need. And it's such a lose-lose proposition. It really is. If I knew then what I know now, I don't think it would have helped me in my particular relationship, but there are relationships that I've had to speak up. Certain things at work have happened where recently I've handled it very differently than I would have. I would have squelched it. I would have rationalized it. I would have been like, oh, it's not that bad. But just anything to not, put yourself in that uncomfortable place. And I did, and it helped a lot. So it really can only be a good thing if you're not, keeping that resentment and that war inside of yourself. Well, can I just chime in with one thing that we were going to talk about? And that is, if you are in a close relationship with somebody and you don't speak your mind, they can actually get upset that you didn't do that. Like I would be if somebody didn't come to me and say, when you do this thing, it bothers me, or this is unfair, or I've been feeling this way for a while, whatever. If they didn't do that, I'd be like, what? No, you have to come to me. I love you. Of course. Let's talk about it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We just project. We're just human projectors.
Yeah.
Shira, you made a good point though about like what our perception of, like the person not being able to handle it, but you can't let what somebody said who isn't that person inform, like not everybody's going to react the same way. So like Kim, you learned from an early age, like it's not safe to speak your mind. And then that becomes like a blanket statement for all people. But, we are all individuals. We all have our individual, like, first of all, relationships with you, like not all friendships are the same. Not all, romantic relationships are the same. Like that happens all the time. It's like we break up with somebody and then we carry the baggage of not being able to say what we wanted to say in a past relationship into the new one, assuming that our new partner can't handle it just like the person before them. And that's not giving them enough credit. I remember like having that breakthrough in college when like I said something to my boyfriend about how like, well, but my boyfriend before, he's like, I'm not him.
Right.
I'm not that person. I don't feel that way. I'm not trying to keep you from going out with your friends. And I had just assumed like, oh, all men are like this. And that, like, just that one sentence, I'm not him, was like the biggest gift he could have ever given me, because I literally started every relationship with a clean slate. I was like, this is a whole new person with a whole new set of values, a whole new set of mindsets. And I cannot bring my old stuff into relationships. So now when I get triggered in my current relationship, I can be like, just so you know, that was a triggering thing, but I know it's not you, because it has nothing to do with the fact that you said X, Y, and Z, or you did X, Y, and Z. I'm just being triggered by something that happened in the past. And he's like so appreciative. He's like, oh, you know, that's not us. That's not our stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm still triggered, but I know. So I'm just going to go in my corner, work through this, and I'll come back to you when I'm ready to like move past it and like sort it out, you know?
Can I just say hallelujah? Because that is when you know that you've been doing the work and it's working.
Exactly.
And you're aware of it.
Yes.
Our favorite word. That's really good stuff, Zhuge. And, you know, to kind of tie that in with something Kim said earlier, we make stuff up all the time, you know? So Kim, when you saw this girl and guy laughing and you immediately took it personally and felt like they were laughing at you. I mean, you know, that was in your head, obviously, you know, we do that all the time. I feel like with, you know, to so many different extents, but it's us. And to get back to what you were saying, Zhuge, yeah, it always circles back to us, how we are taking it, how we are, you know, our perception is huge.
Can I share a meme that I saw the other day? I didn't pull it up. I meant to pull it up. I wanted to share it with you guys, but it said, you probably saw this. It said, I pulled it up just now. Walking on eggshells is easy. Tiptoeing around crazy. Now that takes talent.
Good one.
I just love that.
I'm going to steal that. Can we give that to someone who we're walking on eggshells with?
I'm going to send it to you.
God.
I'm going to send it to you guys in the text.
Would that be an insult?
We started with a quote and we ended with a quote. Isn't that so lovely? I think this is an amazing place to wrap, girls. We hope you enjoyed our conversation as much as we did. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to let us know if you have any topic requests or questions by commenting below. We'll see you soon. Stay safe, everybody. We love you so much. Mwah.